the most striking thing I wanted to tell you about, two things that changed my life politically. It's my mother's sister coming from Bushbuck Ridge. She has got 7 operations. You know, she gave birth through Caesar. If you are black, you need to show you give children. If you don't have children, bayak despiser. You know what I mean? I mean, the oppression is terrible. That she had to go through 7 Caesar to give birth to those children. It's terrible. So she was sick, and they couldn't solve it in Bushbuck Ridge. They drive her to Johannesburg. She arrives at 10 o'clock ebusuku, ekhaya eTlaji. 2 o'clock, I'm a blackjack, I figure, to arrest her because she has no permit to be in Soweto. Huh? She's no permit. They go and put her in the office of the superintendent. This white guy will come at 8 M17 and pass judgment on all these people who are arrested for coming here without permits. How they knew she was there, I don't know. But when I saw her and went at Exening Yobonum, my mother's sister, I knew this apartheid thing comes from the devil. You get what I mean? You couldn't reconcile it with the gospel. It's not possible. It doesn't make sense. And then, of course, the next that happened when I was 16 years old, we have to apply for the pass. IPASA. Now, you don't know, I put duplicate in quotes there. The Bagniki duplicate, which means it's a piece of paper that says we've applied for a... But we used to call it duplicate. I don't know why we called it duplicate. And then if you go in and out every month, second month, we faggot kwamen, and you are 16-year-old, it gets torn. Yeah. So I arrive at Westgate, near train, I'm going to the bus office now. The young African police are standing there, pass, I produce my paper, duplicate. And they beat me up. They say, who comes Jideng second? And they beat me up. I mean, and then I made a mistake to say, Menier. Angithi mina esikolweni basifundisa ukuthi uma uhlonipha uthi Menier in Afrikaans. And they beat me up for saying Menier. I'm not your Menier as your boss. You know what I'm talking about? This younger generation doesn't know this. You've never had an experience like that. You needed to then make sense about the gospel and this political system. And you had to make a decision that this thing comes from the devil. It can't come from God. If it comes from the devil, it must be opposed. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? Fortunately, for some of you, because of apartheid, they had a black section of the AFM and a white section. Because of that, we missed the influence of Europe about theology. They've put us on the side. So we developed our own theology in Soweto, which is supportive and ecumenical. Anglicans and Catholics and Pentecostals come together when there's a death. And they know how to integrate this in a service. You know what I'm talking about? So I had no problem about their problems in Europe. The Lord assisted me to interpret what the gospel means to us in this situation in which we were. This changed my life completely, quickly. Then I went to high school. When I was in high school, there was conflict between the SEM. Now the political climate gets charged up. And the SEM learner, Baba, I'm happy you are here. You know, the SEM, the leadership were keeping us away from politics and all that. And then the students fought the SEM leaders, Orlando High. I used to leave early because I used to stay at Klaji and I must go public transport. I hear this story. I come back and they say, no, they were fighting because these guys are Christians and they claim to be Christians. Lamapuna Safiga Sniki Bible and took our land. So these people are dangerous who have this Bible. So I asked the principal, because I think I was crazy. I asked the principal to say, can you convene a meeting of these students, because they're going to kill each other, and deal with this problem. And so they went to the hall, invited the leadership of the students, SCM leaders, etc., but it was full. And I had to address this. And I had to say, how do we interpret our faith in an apartheid society where the Christians are the ones who oppress you? You get what I'm talking about? And they do it in the name of the Lord. How do you handle that? Because these students are right. They are right. So I had to pray and went to that meeting, and that's why I speak like a fool now. But I went there to that meeting. Our teacher and I were there. And I had to develop a theory about rereading the Bible, reinterpreting it, and liberating the gospel from the oppressor. You get what I'm talking about? Reread the Bible, because if you read it from their point of view, they call you less human. You are made in the image of God, but not so much. You're less than. You know what I'm talking about? They've got a theory. That's why the Palestinians, and I keep on going back to the Palestinians, how do you become a Christian Palestinian and read this Bible we are reading? How do you survive that? You know, how do you survive justification of more than 50 years of occupation and you have no rights? How does it happen? But you are a Christian. You know what I'm talking about. And now they came, visited us recently. Almost invited Palestinian Christians who were with them recently. I learned something which I wished I got it earlier. You know, they say no. This theology says the Jews have the right to the land. You must go to heaven. Did you get me? Did you get me? You have no land. You are going to heaven. So worry about heaven. But only the Jews have the right to worry about the land. And I thought, but that's what they were telling us, you know. Don't worry about earthly things. Worry about Pileli Utiko. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, and leave this thing. You know, don't fight about your land, your rights, and etc. And I thought when I listened to those Palestinians, because when I was there and went to church, we left, went to a restaurant. This owner of the restaurant was at the church with us. He's 48 years, it was 2015. He said to me, you know, Reverend, I was born occupied. I'm 48, I'm still occupied. I have no right. And the Christians in the world support this thing. The Christians, it's the same like South Africa. And then the last encounter, high school, quickly. I went to preach at Morris Isaacson before June 16. I didn't know it's machine from a bar of soap. I went to preach there, like fire. We used to preach. I wish the sermons were recorded. Fire. Altar call, and you know, the Lord is great. And then Mashinini climbed on a desk and challenged me. And you said, you know, you are a whitewashed fool. You're carrying this Bible and our land is gone. You know what I'm talking about? And I had to take a stand. I'm saying Orlando High. So I know how to do it, you know. So I deal with the issue and we agreed now. at the end, masivale le nkonzo, ngoba for many people here, what we are debating now, it's not relevant for them. But I would like to meet you guys. And so we met up to 8 o'clock that night. I preached in about 8 o'clock, talking about what the faith means and how you become Christian in an apartheid society. It's a journey, that you had to go through. Unfortunately, he died, so he's not one of those who have met afterwards for a conversation. We have had conversations with many others. Then we went to University of the North. I wanted to go to Wits. I would speak like a fool now. I had the highest symbol of mathematics in Soweto. Uma uthole u-B eSoweto. Yo, u-maths. You know what I'm talking about. And then uthole u-C ku-physical science without a laboratory. Uba nongzwile, without a laboratory. When you mix this with that, it turns this color. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen how disabled people develop other capacities? A blind person operates better than us. You know what I'm talking about? Because they develop other capacities. And so you have this experience of a laboratory you don't have. You develop a capacity to pass this exam. And then I applied to go to Wits. I want to do medicine. And they said, no, you can't go to Wits. During those days, you must apply to the minister for permission to go to Wits. And they said, no, you must start in a black university, do maths and physics first. You used to do course 1 first there, and then go to a medical school. This Mokokong who did this extraordinary operations was with me at Tefluop first before he became a doctor. And so I thought, but I don't remember a mathematician, scientist from University of the North who will produce a scientist there. So I tried to go to Fort Hare, at least chemistry. There were chemists at Fort Hare. And I applied, and I thought I was saying Chikane. You can see I can't even pronounce it right. No, the application came back and said, no, because you are Northern Sotho, you must go to Limpopo. The system determined how it destroys you. And you had to fight against the odds. And you are a child of God. And these people are Christians who do these things to you. So I went to Tefluop 3 years. I won't waste your time. Came and worked at the Nuclear Physics Research Unit at Wits. And operated one of the most sophisticated machines there with the second atomic scientist in the country. 3 years later, 3.5, we agreed Nobabu Ngwenya is back from exile now to say, no, we produce these results, we give them, but we don't know what they do with these results. And information came out that there are nuclear weapons that are being developed. And if you are working with somebody who's a second atomic scientist in the country, there must be a role we are playing we don't know. And we resigned in 1979 with that brother. And he went to exile to teach maths at Morogoro. There's a school, Gugupie, Tanzania. And I remained here. But we worked there to help white students for their practicals in that laboratory. But we were not allowed to be in this laboratory. And so I decided I will volunteer, serve the church in the meantime, and started other projects. I don't have time about that. But I thought it's important for you to know the struggle. Then we arrive at Tefloop. We find abazalwane there worshiping on it. There's a copy there. If you go, anybody who has gone to Tefloop, there's a little mountain there. The Christians were praying there because the students, Baba Gotile. No, you are irrelevant. We don't want you here. So we arrived, no Cyril Ramaphosa. I won't call him president now. I need it's that time. Yeah, it's young ambassadors and youth clubs, and that's where we came from. We arrived there, and Labazalwane were happy that they are praying in the mountain because it really is persecution by Zulu. You know what I'm talking about? They were okay. And then we said, no, the gospel must be preached at the great hall of this university. We're going to get out of the mountain and preach at the great hall. It took us a year because I need to sing my first year. It took us a year to work through this thing. And the next election, Cyril Ramaphosa gets elected chair of the SEM. I get elected chair of the Evangelistic Fellowship. And then our target was within 2 years we'll be preaching at the great hall of this university. And we're going to work towards that. And then with our evangelistic fellowship, we got the bus of the university and had a mission to hit any educational institution within 100 meters of the university. And we used to go on that bus to colleges, high schools, preach the gospel in those areas, and still studied, and make sure you study. And Cyril Ramaphosa then became, the last year, we ended up at the Great Hall, preached the gospel at the Great Hall, and we had to do papers on Christianity and black consciousness. Unfortunately, I've looked for this paper, I can't find it. Google, and the hard copies, I can't find it, I'm looking for it. Christianity and black consciousness. Explain your faith in relation to this challenge. And then you will be able to preach there. And so we ended up at the Great Hall, and Cyril Ramaphosa gets elected. SASO was banned for our duration of 3 years there. But in August of the last year, it was unbanned. Cyril Ramaphosa becomes chair of SASO. Can you imagine from the mountain to chair of SASO? I hope you understand what I'm talking about. Because we had to battle that. It was a battle of faith that we called to preach the gospel. And nobody is going to stop us from preaching the gospel here. And so we leave the university. And I just want to, because clock is against us, the cell phone is the clock. Now my experience in the church, then I come back. I mean, you are on fire. You come into a racist church, black church, Indian, colored, white. I mean, how do you live in a church like that? And so 75 manje, Pumelena, Frelimo Rally, were thrown out, Snyman Commission. I don't have to worry you about that. You can go and read about it. And now I'm back in the church. And I go to Naleji High to teach maths and physics. 3 months later, the police come to the principal and said, we don't want that guy there. Please take him out. Can't teach. Will influence the students. And we go there in that school, Naleji. And so I'm out now in April. Then Christ for All Nations takes me, and Bonke wants to establish Christ for All Nations. Bonke came as an evangelist from the Velbata mission in Germany. When the white Afrikaner missionaries of the AFM were thrown out in the frontline states, Velbata mission was asked to take those places. And that's how Bonke lands in Lesotho, because many people don't know how Bonke landed in Lesotho. And when he was there, the Lord speaks to him that he must start Christ for All Nations. And then he says, no, the Lord said he must start it with Fred Chikane. So Gashwent, who was our missionary director, goes to Teflop 74, my last year, to come and talk to me that Bonke is coming 75, wants to start with you. But brothers and sisters, I want you to understand the journey we've walked. We went to the white pastor's home in Petersburg for me to see Gashwent. I'm a student. You know, I mean, if you go there, you only had breakfast. Then they come there, I knock, the helper says, no, they are still at the church. I can't allow you to come here. So tell me where the church is. I walk to the church. I find them. They come back home. They don't eat lunch with the guest Gashwent because the black guy is here. They can't eat lunch. You know, so we talk and talk about joining Bonke, and then they let me go 3 o'clock, go back to the university without lunch. Because how do you eat with a black person in the house? You know what I'm talking about? And you can't. There was no way in which I would say this thing is Christian. Actually, I sympathize with Pastor Gashwent that he didn't have his lunch. He's a guest here. Agadlanga because I'm there. And I agreed. I said, no, I can work with Bonke. And we went there and started at Bramfontein. I set up the office and this and the other. You are dangerous there. I do that with Bonke. And then Angola breaks up, the war there in Angola. When Bonke left, these white brothers locked the toilet. Because I can't use the same thing. You use the toilet, yama workers, black workers. So now they ask us to pray for Angola. So I said to them, no, I do like praying, but I will come and pray with you once you've opened the toilet. Yeah, I will come. But you must open the toilet first. Now, you see, you won't take it serious that a toilet can be a major spiritual issue. That's the journey. You know, that's the journey we walked. That's our journey. And I had said no. And they thought I'm Antichrist and anathema. They labeled me. Then Bonke comes, tries to go to the toilet is locked. So he comes to me and says, why is the toilet locked? I said, no, go and ask them. It was locked long time ago. And he went there and came back to me, Bonke, and said, we live in this place today. We're not going to be in a place like this. And the people who keep the key are born-again Christians. You need to then say, no, for me to survive in my faith, I must discount. In our economy, discount. I must discount these guys because they will take me to hell. If you preoccupied with them, you will end up in hell. The problem with grace is that they may be born again the day before they die. Yeah, that's the problem about grace. You know what I'm talking about? And you may be in hell because of them, but they are in heaven. Because of the grace of God. You know. And so you have to develop a theology to survive and say, I'm not going to fall from grace. because of these people. Niyangizwa bazalwane, I'm not going to fall. It does not matter what you do to me. I'll say this because my wife is not with me. She's gone to church. She was doing the class in the morning at 8, and she's doing fundraising. So she said, I can't go with you. I can say this in her absence. It doesn't matter what you do to me. The one thing I won't do is to fall from grace. Amen. Because of anybody. And the good thing about the gospel is that if you hold on and die in the faith, you are a winner. Amen. Yeah, so even when the deacon of my church tortured me, it's in the book, at Kruger's police station, 48 hours, and supervised my torture. Goes to church, comes and find me here. And I thought, this is tough. And then they took me up Sugu, about 1, 2 o'clock, drove me in the direction of northwest. When we went past Mahalisberg, you remember those curves? I will never forget that. They were driving there, I think, about 140, 60, 80, and I don't know where I'm going. I'm on leg irons and hands tied up. And I said, Lord, we're going to die here, but why don't we die? Because I don't know where I'm going. I'm ready to die. And, I don't want to say the voice of the Lord said the following. But something said, you are okay to go, but these 2 guys in front of you are not okay. Are not okay. You are fine. The fact that you are fine, you are ready to go, but these 2 guys need the gospel. You know what I'm talking about? These 2 guys. You don't know where they are taking you to, but these 2 guys. And that taught me what it means to love your enemy. To love your enemy means you must recognize first it's an enemy. At least I love that. God, it means recognizing you are my enemy is not sin. But I need to love you. Because to preach the gospel to the sinners, you must love them. You can't preach to them and not love them. So you have to love your enemy for you to be able to preach to the enemy.